What's good, y'all, and welcome to another video. I know I've been silent for quite a while, and at the end of the day I was just weathering the storm, waiting it out, seeing what actually happens, and here we go. Yeah, basically the way they're talking about it is we all know that if you do your first 50 summons when you start the game, you're guaranteed to get a legendary. Nobody was really clear then, nobody stated it ever, and apparently there were some summons and some issues in the 10 divines. Probably not the whole truth, but we don't really care. What we're here for are rewards and rewards only. So basically you're getting 60 summons, you're getting 10 divines, and obviously as soon as you claim it you get a random hero. As you can see, we managed to get Glacius even as he's new to our account. So obviously the first step is claim your rewards and then figure out who you get. And then you have your prime legendary pack. And now obviously the whole thing I'm here for is helping you decide who to pick from your prime legendary pack. So overall the decision is very easy. So we go through it kind of like a flow chart, you could say, okay? So first off, if you do not have Elwyn, it isn't even a decision, okay? No matter what state your account is in, if you do not have Elwyn, do not proceed further, alright? If you don't have Elwyn, pick Elwyn, be happy, and upgrade that beautiful nature's favor. Now that we've eliminated Elwyn, rule number 2. If you do already have Elwyn, pick Torador. No discussion. If you want to know why, he's relevant in way too much content, he makes units way too strong, he is way too useful, and his debuff is way too overpowered. If you're interested in more specifics in regards to my thoughts on Elwyn and Torador, those are at the end of the video. But again, rule 1, pick Elwyn. Rule 2, if already have Elwyn, pick Torador. And rule 3, do not pick duplicates. It is too valuable of a chance. Let's get on with the rest of the heroes. So now that we've eliminated the obviously best choices, Elwyn and Torador, if you're still here, how do you pick between all these heroes? This is kind of like a simplified version of importance. They're kind of ordered by size and also obviously by importance. The higher the heroes are, the more important they are, and obviously the bigger they are, the bigger the impact. So yeah, here's kind of like a representation of all the heroes, and what you're going to notice is that weirdly enough, the Hex, Silas, Vierna trio is very much above everyone else, and that's kind of the point. Here's like the first big decision you need to make. What are you looking for? Is it account strength? And is it account power? Or is it your collector spirit? Because at the end of the day, we all have to admit Lords are rarer than standard units. It is going to be less likely for you to, for example, pull a Morrigan than it is for you to pull a Vierna. So the big question now is you need to ask is, what do you value more? Do you value power more, or do you value rarity more? Do you want to fill out your collection, or do you want to strive for the strongest account possible? So depending on these, your values kind of shift. If you're looking for collectors, obviously you really want to pick one of these because they're just rarer, and that's the benefit that there is. But if you're looking for account power, especially the units right here on this spectrum are way more important. So yeah, that's kind of the choice you have to make for yourself. But now that you've kind of seen this, you can make a decision, a very well educated one based on this one. The only thing I have to say is, if you pick the Silas Vierna one, you have to have the other half. Do not pick either Silas or Vierna if you don't have a Silas or a Vierna. If you have to do it, pick a Vierna. Do not pick Silas without a Vierna. He is going to disappoint you to no end. And yeah, basically just from this one, if you're not in for the long haul, pick Hex, right? If you don't have Hex, if you're looking for the most account power, pick Hex. It's that simple. If you don't, if you have Hex already, if you do have Vierna, if you do have Silas, pick Twiler. And if you don't have either of those, Silas or Vierna, but you do have Hex, you can still pick Twiler. Those is like the quick overview, but now it's time we go more in depth. So we'll continue staying in the order of power. The first one we'll have to have a look at is obviously Hex. The reason Hex is so overpowered because not only does he do magic damage, he is also single target, he has stuns, he has slows, he has increased attack, he has partial invulnerability. He has everything you could ever need. And yeah, his awakenings are also very, very strong, and he is going to be one of those characters that if you have him in your account, you are going to work towards the F5. You are going to use those unpolished soulstones. And the main improvement to Hex is obviously his exclusive artifact. Even if you get Hex and you're slightly miffed by his potential, grind for the exclusive artifact, give it to him, and he is going to skyrocket in value. So now back to the other guys that we wanted to talk about, and it's obviously Silas. So Silas is kind of fallen away a bit because Hex is so strong, we're getting all these strong heroes, but Silas is still one of the most overpowered units in the entire game, and that is because he has this 50% defense ignore on his soul sniping, and what others don't realize, because once again Moonton is confusing with their description, he ignores every piece of defense and magic res on the target, because it says that it ignores the death and magic res, and that's the fact that this soul sniping basically changes to deal 140% that ignores 100% of the target's defense. So keep that in mind. He's basically the one that shreds everything no matter what, and that is what makes him so valuable. He can crush whatever piece of content you put him into, and the only real thing he struggles with is obviously the AoE side of things. Again, the important part is this bond skill right here, because this bond skill, at the end of the day, as weird as it sounds, this bond skill doubles his damage. No matter what your Silas do, add a Venthyr, you can double the damage with the 2x multiplier. It is that crazy. So yeah, the Lost Love passive is the most disgusting in the entire game, probably still the strongest bond skill in existence, and only pick Silas if you have Venthyr or vice versa. So now that we've talked about Venthyr already briefly, let's go over her once more. So Ventyr's main benefit and main reason is obviously the execute. At the core of things, she is still a AoE mage, and if you're looking for an AoE mage and you need someone to help you clear stuff, obviously you can pick Venthyr. That is only under the condition that you have Silas. So Venthyr at the end of the day is a good AoE mage. If you give her exclusive artifact and exclusive gear, she can obviously go further and further, but she is still on par with Karmit when it comes to the top of the line AoE mages. Now if you're looking at AoE mages and you do not have a Silas, the AoE mage you should pick if you really do struggle with AoE mages and you know that you want to progress in AoE content, that is going to be Boreas. The big part that you have to keep in mind with Boreas though is he's not going to help you in Gear Dungeon 1. Don't use him in Gear Dungeon 1 because he cannot freeze. If he cannot freeze, he cannot apply anti-heal, and if he cannot apply anti-heal, he also doesn't do extra damage. Overall, he is going to crush everything when it comes to campaign, when it comes to Gear Raid 1, Gear Raid 2. But again, he is not going to help you in Gear Dungeon 1 or Gear Dungeon 2 overly much, while a Venthyr, for example, can one-shot either the bottom or the top lane in Gear Dungeon 1. So keep that in mind if you do decide to pick Boreas, but he is at the end of the day just a glorified AoE mage. So now that we went to the three of those, still we have to look at, where is she? Twiler in all her glory. So the big part about Twiler is only pick her if you have Hex. The reason you want to only pick her if you have Hex is because this bond skill is very, very strong and you are not really going to see the value of a Twiler without it. Overall, what does Twiler do? What she can do? She applies bleed. Besides that, she has one tile range, so she's only really relevant in content like Gate Boss 1 and Gate Boss 2 most of the time. And then obviously, I guess, Infernal Codexes. But yeah, she does a bunch of damage in a whole bunch of instances, and overall a big number, but still not so impressive that I would rank her either above like the Silas Venthyr pair or Hex. So yeah, that's kind of the thing with her. Now before we get too rude, you might have seen it in the picture already, there's Magda. Now Magda, she's a strong fighter, she does AoE damage, she has pushback, which is nice and all. The big issue, Gear Dungeon 1 is immune to pushback, so she kinda disappoints. She can solo Gear Dungeon 121. If you're looking for soloing Gear Dungeon 121 for whatever reason, feel free to pick her. If she's the only hero missing, obviously pick her. But besides that, she's just really not worth it, and that was the reason I made her so small. If you want to, you can check back in the beginning. So, now that we went through all these heroes, basically you can again imagine it in the groups I've presented. So, Silas, Venthyr, Hex have priority. You can bind Twiler into that, sure, but Boreas and Magda are definitely away from these units in general. Now we have to take a look at the other lords that are still on the table. So first off, Twinfin. Very strict, very straightforward. Twinfin is a strong hero. Twinfin does a whole lot of damage, and if you actually use his ultimate, especially if you have Inferno units on the field, his damage is going to be monstrous. But at least currently with the heroes we have released, do not go for Twinfin unless you have a Zillitu. Unless you have a Zillitu, do not go for Twinfin. It is the way of things, it is the way it's supposed to be, and the reason for those that of you that don't know is kind of the way it works is Twinfin activates his ultimate, and then every unit that he stops from attacking, they shoot a projector, and that projector does damage. For whatever reason in the code of the game, Zillitu does it twice. Zillitu does twice the damage she's supposed to do. Nobody really knows why. It doesn't really make too much of a difference, and she also has that nice 3.8 multiplier, so that's the reason why Zillitu does so much more damage with the Twinfin compared to anybody else. That's the lay of the land with Twinfin. Now Araka. Araka, very simple. If you do not have any Piercer Lord, go for Araka. If you do not have any Piercer Lord, the benefit of that one added tile, it is still it's hard to say, but I would still rank it as the strongest Lord effect in the entire game, because that one extra tile is so incredible. Obviously, if your Piercer faction is very hollow, you do not have any Piercers at all, there is no real point to picking a Piercer. The same goes for Twinfin. You also do need the base units to work with. So for example, if you have a Venthyr boosted Silas, if you have a Hex, Araka is a no-brainer. Now that brings us to the next interesting guy, and that is Ajax. So Ajax is very strong, no doubt, but not in the areas you would expect. Yes, he can help in Gear Dungeon 1 if you so desire. Yes, he is very good in Guild Boss, in Gear Raid 1, but he mainly shines in kind of his supporter role with his skill right here and these pure disgustingness of Dragon's Might in combination with GVG. He is a GVG monster. If you're looking for end game GVG and you fought against the top guilds, you're going to see they have Ajax, you don't, you're going to feel left out. Then we come right here to Leia. The only reason you add this choice is because you have Elowin already. If you have Elowin already, I hope you also have Hollow. If you don't, if you have Elowin but you don't have Hollow, Leia is a no-brainer, because you at the end of the day most of the time are going to run around with 2 sources of rage regen. That's kind of also the limiting factor for Leia. You only really have space for 2 sources of rage regen, or you could say need on your account for 2 sources of rage regen. The only reason Leia is relevant is if you're playing friend assisted Guild Boss 1 and you're trying to basically Hollow Loris cycle and then introduce a Leia in there to push your score even higher. There is no content that strictly requires her, but still she also has relevance when it comes to being a Lord, for example, very simply for Guild Boss 2. If you're looking for a strong Guild Boss 2 team, especially a secondary team, Leia is going to be very nice, but once more overshadowed by Toreador. So yeah, now that kind of leaves us with the last, and that is Venoma. Venoma's only real usefulness currently is the fact that she gives 30% rage on first deployment. Can be quite nice in arena and kind of bridges the gap between like the Voldrons, the Pratises and the Ingrids, but not enough. Her skills are mediocre. She turns out to be a mediocre AoE mage, and unless you have a Karmet and a Boreas and a Nora already on the ready, she isn't really going to have an impact for your account. And then lastly, we have the meme lord himself, King Horus. King Horus can be 90% replicated by an Isolde, and that 10% is only if you fully skill him and then use his skill. So yeah, if you're really all that desperate, if you have everything else on this list, pick King Horus. But yeah, besides that, please do refrain from picking him. He's kind of like a glorified Isolde. He is a worse Oleg, but nonetheless, he is a Lord at the end of the day. So yeah, the last thing I guess is kind of talk about Eowyn and Toreador and why they are so strong and why this overall scenario here is the best thing that could have happened. The game has always moved in the direction where two specific units have become way too prevalent. And these two units are obviously going to be Toreador and Eowyn. The reason is that Toreador is the one that enables all the fighters to do correct amount of damage. He also is a tank in the Nightmare faction, so you can use him to tank, whilst you use your other Nightmare units to deal ridiculous amount of damage. He has that incredibly disgusting 20% defense reduction. He has the slows, the stuns. He is very valuable in GVG. His Lord bonus, I mean, who had this great idea of getting 35% increased attack speed, but also you have this basic attack has a 30% chance of landing an extra hit effect. This is what kind of like pushes the Twilers, the Kigiris, the Arrogances of the world over the edge. This is the benefit that this separates him from Wrath. It is really strong. And then lastly, obviously, you have the Queen of Everything, the most important unit in the game. You either pick her or you lose. Eowyn, and the reason is you have field-wide global rage region at 1% per second at full upgrades. Also, you have the ability to place a Wood Sprite, and if you place that Wood Sprite, you can actually sell him, and the Wood Sprite is going to give you more cost than he costs, which makes Eowyn a cost generator. Ridiculous, I know, but overall very overpowered. And then just the icing on the cake is her Grace of Nature with an incredible Vortex-esque range with even one tile behind, and the full cleanse. It is just, she is so prevalent because she does so many things, because she is this strong. This concludes this right here. Again, please follow these simple rules. Eowyn first, Toreador second, do not pick duplicates, and the rest is in your own hands. We see each other in the next one. Peace!